Hey, how's it going? It's Elleh here. Welcome to my playthrough of Elden Ring New Game Plus One. So I thought I'll just run you guys through how I've been going through Elden Ring. You would have seen I've put up tons of shorts clips over the last month or so, running through various bosses or key areas and whatnot in my base game playthrough. And after I did the base game playthrough and I spent a lot of time collecting some stuff and powering up and all, then I decided to start off New Game Plus One, which I've done previously in another Souls game. So I thought it would be pretty interesting to actually, capture how I go or some of the key moments in New Game Plus One. But what I'll also do is I'll also try to put in some tips for players who are just starting out in the base game. So because I've finished the game and I'm starting New Game Plus One, I have a lot of the weapons and I have the build to take some things on which you ideally need to avoid in your first few hours. But I'll try to put in something for everyone, and I've set up chapters, so if you want to skip through the intro and the mechanics run through and stuff, you can go straight on to some pretty cool boss fights. I've got some cool fights against dragons included towards the end and whatnot. And as we progress, I'll in the next video you'd even see some really cool stuff at Dragonbarrow and a couple of other better dragons and other stuff, and Redmane Castle. But here we are at the Chapel of Anticipation, which is the opening area. Normally you skip down the cliff from here to land in the training area, and this is the first boss that comes up. You won't necessarily have the power to take him on now in the base game, but because I'm in New Game Plus, I took him out. But even in the base game, if you dodge him properly and slowly wear him down, it's not a bad idea, because you win the ornamental straight sword and a shield, and that straight sword is a good dex weapon for those going for that build. Now I was a bit slack in that fight because I knew I was too buffed for him to take, but you're actually, as we'll run through the mechanics and some of my better fights as we go on, you've actually got to dodge through and dodge into certain attacks and get under the enemy and then hit them out. So that a lot of people get tempted to roll away, but if you roll away, you often get caught in their late roll catch attacks or long combos and multiple attacks. So the idea is to, as far as possible, unless it's an explosion, try and roll in and then dodge to the sides and find your window at the end of their combos, or if you possibly can at late in between. And here I'm just running you through the menu. So front off the bat, I kind of liked how the weapons and everything were categorized. It was a bit easier than compared to Dark Souls 3. So as you progress, you've got the bows, the seals, the shields, and on top you progress by order of sword, great sword, axe, whatnot. So it's kind of easy if you're switching weapon in between a fight. And these are some ashes which I've shown you later in the video, wherein you can summon people to kind of assist you and whatnot. That's a bit different from Dark Souls, where you got to complete quest lines or access certain in-game summons when you're in the embered mode. Here, as long as you get their ashes, you can access them. And I'm also showing you this is something new, that you'd win a flask called the Wondrous Physics, wherein you can mix a couple of tiers to buff either defense attack or a certain kind of attack or boost based on the build you're going for, which is pretty cool. So in addition to the flasks for improving health or the mana that you use for the weapon skills or magic, you've also got this Wondrous Physic which you can buff. And here we are in the training area. So this is where you pretty much jump down and begin. So as I said, I've set up this video in chapters so you can skip right ahead, but I just thought in case there's someone who's not a Souls player is also watching, I might as well run through some basic mechanics. So the front up is the Sites of Grace, or what you'd have called a bonfire in other Souls games. So this is where you can rest to recover your health and your flasks, and bear in mind that enemies reset as well. But what's pretty good about Elden Ring is that unlike other Souls games, you don't need to be at a site of grace to, fast travel to another site of grace. As long as you're not in combat from the map, you can fast travel to any site of grace that you've unlocked, which is pretty cool. And here I'm just demonstrating some of the basic attacks and guards. Okay. So I just thought I'll run through those. So it's a pretty good training, and it maps out, the controls and the buttons that you've set up on your keyboard and controller, and tells you what to do. So it's not a bad front up, kind of training, because I don't recall. Dark Souls kind of had it through messages and front up, but this is a bit better. And yep, I'm just trying to play with this guy, but as you'll see, you're actually supposed to get close and and then dodge, and you can even backstab and stuff. So yeah, that's fine. And it's got a pretty nice view so far. And that's a guy upstairs with a bow, and and you can dash in this game as well, which is pretty good. You can dash in most Souls games, and and we briefly run through like dual wielding or armaments with both hands. And now we come to skills. So skills are like the weapon arts or special special skills of the weapons from prior Souls games. So here they're called skills or ashes of war. Now I'm currently using a special weapon I unlocked in the base game, so it has a fixed ashes of war, which is a yoke dancing blaze, but there are a lot of weapons for which you can customize these the special attack or ashes of war. And okay, here I just demonstrated the crouch mechanism, which will be quite handy. It reminds me of the you can sneak past enemies like you did in Sekiro. That's pretty good. And of course, stance breaking is pretty important in any Souls games too, because each game opponent has a poise meter, and you got to basically break that to stun them so that you can perform a critical attack. And you normally break it through a mix of your heavies or jump attacks and whatnot. So that's there. And so that was pretty much it. And this is the first boss. I'll just shortly run through him before I continue that discussion on Ashes of War. So here another new thing is a guard counter, that immediately after breaking, if you do a heavy attack, it's like a guard counter. And that should be it. So kind of did that there. This is an easy guy. He's like the NPC, the opponents you see walking around all over the place. But interestingly, I forgot that his first attack was a pierce attack, so took a bit of damage. That's funny. And this is the first checkpoint before we finally unlock the main entrance. And to the right of that is an area which you can unlock later. I'll explain why. And here we go. 7 minutes into the video, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Elden Ring. Beautiful. That's the Limgrave area. It looks pretty nice. And once we unlock a horse, which we will shortly, in the next video, I'll show you how you can go behind this area and underneath to another cave and some place where you get some cool unlockables. And now front up, we go and touch our first official site of grace and talk to this dude on the left, whom we'll need to engage again at a later point. We tarnished.
Come to them, of course. You unfortunate without guidance. You are fake. Are you familiar? You may.
That's pretty interesting.
If you see, if a castle, if you see, if a castle, if you.
Oh you're maidenless. Sure. Nice to stereotype gamers. Kidding. And this is the first boss you encounter, the Tree Sentinel. He's entirely optional. Most people would, level up and come back and get him. Though some might slowly wear him down, but I had a grudge to settle, so I just, and I'm an NG1 anyway, so I just kind of slammed him through. And once you do that, what you're ideally supposed to do, you could possibly skip him, and you just continue straight from the first step onto this place, the Church of Elleh, which is your another one of the first checkpoints. And over here we'll talk to, and this was those Ashes of War that I was talking about before I continue. So these are for a lot of the base weapons and the non-special weapons. You can change their skill, give it a poison or a bleed affinity or a magic affinity or an occult affinity, or add a storm stomp or something like that. So that's pretty cool. So that was my, this is like a powerful late game weapon that I'm using. Now if I shift back to a long sword, I've put like a poison affinity, but I've chosen the blood affinity instead of the poison, occult, or standard. So then when I use the special attack, it does some repeated thrusts, which basically trigger bleed. So that's pretty interesting. So that was that Ashes of War bit that I was, and then this is like, that how you can mix the wondrous physics. So you can choose any two of these tiers to boost defense or a particular kind of damage or a particular kind of attack, like I'm currently boosting thrusting, but that's fine. So now once you reach this place, you talk to this merchant, exhaust all of his dialogue, and you need to make some purchases. So you need to purchase a crafting kit, which I've already done, so I don't have access to, and that will allow you to collect, once you collect items across the map, you can craft a few things like anti-poisons and stuff, or like some basic bows, or like a gold pickled foot to help with the amount of souls you collect and things like that. So that'll be good to have. And this is like where you can basically initially upgrade your weapons. You will eventually get access to a Roundtable hold and a proper weaponsmith who can do it, but I believe at this place you can level up your weapons a bit, provided you have the stones. So I'm of course in New Game Plus 1, you wouldn't have all of this yet. And before I went to the place where I unlocked the horse and the lady Melina, I took a detour at a cave, because there are a lot of caves across the game, and in my next video I'll show you a cool Dragonbarrow cave that's a bit better. So you don't need to stop at this cave at this point, but like each cave you'd normally win a particular Ashes of War or a weapon or some reward, and after you defeat the enemies there'll be a boss in that. So this guy is like one of the routine enemies you face later in the game, but early on he's like a boss in a cave. And here I won a talisman that helps negate boosts fire damage negation. So I already had that. So it's not a bad idea initially to just level up, add your souls, or win some collectibles or kill time to explore some of these caves, because for later some of these caves you will need to finish to collect items to support a particular weapon or not. So but you don't need to do this cave when you first start the game. You may not have the build to take him on, but I just did a detour. So when you first start the game, after the first step and after going to that church, you will come here to the Gatefront. And once you touch down on the Gatefront site of grace, you'll meet Melina, who will give you, access to your horse torrent and will initially help you level up until a couple of sites of grace later, where she takes you to the Roundtable hold. So, and these guys are pretty interesting. So that's the site of grace you're supposed to go to, and you do that first, but I decided to get these guys first. So these guys, it's very interesting. It's where I tested the crouch mechanic. When I first started my first run, so I crouched across to get these guys, and this is where you pick up a flail. So it might not be a bad idea for you after you touch down that site of grace to pick up that flail, and because you'll need it for the rune farming, I'll show you later. And here I actually fucked up. Like when I first played the game, I had beautifully used that stealth mechanic to take these guys out one by one, but here they noticed me, but so I just took them all out. And that knight that I just hammered with the sword is pretty tough. So once you've started the game, for someone who started the game, is pretty tough. So you need to get rid of the other soldiers, isolate him, and slowly take him out. But I had messed up there. But you may not even need to... sorry about the stutter. My NVIDIA drivers were having some issue. I just got a new one. So you may not need to even take this guy. What you could do is you could check down at the site of grace, sneak around, and here we meet Melina.
Have you heard?
So that's going to be interesting. Exhaust her dialect and whatnot. So what you would ideally do is, accept her service so that she gives you the horse. So what you'd ideally do is you check down on this side of grace, then you'd sneak to the left and take out the flail. You don't need to take out the others, and then we'd progress further. So I briefly went back to that church of Elleh, though you don't need to, because I was trying to see whether you can get Rani to, and talk to Melina when that bubble comes up. So there's a witch Rani that comes, that gives you a spirit summoning bell and your first ashes of these wolves you can summon in a fight. For some reason I couldn't trigger her, but I've done a quest line later and I'll do it anyway. And in the rare case that she doesn't come, once you get to the Roundtable hold, which we will shortly, you can buy the spirit bell and one of the ashes from there. So Once we have done all of that and you're at that checkpoint, you basically need to walk ride your horse straight down this bridge through the great Gatefront ruins. There will be another checkpoint there, a site of grace or whatnot. You can, at this stage optionally choose to activate it. So we activate the site of grace, and then we go down forward to come to a bridge where, if it's nighttime, you can encounter these night cavalry bosses, which are pretty good to take down. Though in your first playthrough, again, you may not necessarily have the build to take him down unless you slowly wear him down. So you can avoid this up front, because up front I'm trying to show you a way to get runes to level up, so you can always come back to this fight. But I just kind of did it because I was there. So once you basically once you cross this bridge, you go through the left and you go down, and you'd come to this checkpoint here, and then you continue northwest until you reach the third church of Marika. And this is where you will somewhere close by, you may get a wondrous physic, and you get some other collectible items like a sacred tear, which which increases either the use of your flask or number of flasks or something. So you get that stuff, and yeah, you can talk to Melina, exhaust her dialogue about this place. So the advantage of coming to this third church of Marika is it's a shortcut. It's got a teleporter, which can take you to one of the later game areas, Caelid, but which is where we have some easy opportunities for rune farming. So we're going to take that jump there across that wall that I showed you, and we'll go through these bushes there, and we should have just be coming through there it is, the teleporter. So this is going to take us to Caelid. The first time you see this, you're like, do I really want to be in Caelid? That's going to be interesting. Oh well, it's taking its time to load up. Yep, so this is Greyoll's Dragonbarrow, and we are just outside the Beastial Sanctum. And this guy out front is a real MF, the Blackblade Kindred. We're not taking him on now, so we check in at the checkpoint inside the Beastial Sanctum. And here, actually, Melina took us to the Roundtable hold. We triggered that, so instead of continuing down that rune farming path, I thought I'll quickly just take you to the Roundtable hold, and that's where you can get the shop to level up, meet the weaponsmith to level up your weapons, and you've got a couple of people you can talk to for quest lines, and one of the guys who gives you information on the bosses. And in the first part of the game, you can even buy some incantations there. So this is a Roundtable hold that you can teleport to, and front up is this lady, Fia, the deathbed companion. Ooh, wink, wink, whatever. But this is the trick there that, a lot of players forget, that, when she hugs you, she gives you this blessing. As long as it's in your inventory, it does reduce your health and mana by a particular amount. So the moment you get it, you're supposed to use it up immediately, which is pretty weird. But yeah, and later she's got a cool quest line in a underground city where we fight some of her champions and then get access to fight a really cool dragon. So that's a blessing. The moment you get it, make sure you use it and get rid of it, because yeah, otherwise it's gonna mess you up. So that's her area, and in that same room, we've got this mirror from which you can adjust your cosmetics, which is pretty cool, because there is a later stage in the game wherein you can use larval tears to reallocate your stats. But and I didn't realize that basic cosmetics can be just generally edited in the Roundtable hold, which is pretty good. So that's fine. And just outside this room to the right is the weaponsmith, and then as we come here, sorry about the occasional stutter, but that's with the new drivers. And then, yeah, here you talk to this guy who can give you some incantations. He's there for the first half of the game, and later you get his ashes from which you can go to the store or something. So let me just get rid of that, and then let's see. Oh yeah, I think I already had these, but I just bought them again just in case. So yeah, so these are the different kinds of incantations and stuff you can get. And then over here is where to the right is going to be the store, and that locked door is going to open shortly, where we meet Sir Gideon Ofnir, who keeps on giving you info every now and then. So oh wow, it turned out that in New Game Plus my all of my store was already unlocked. So like a lot of the grave golvots for upgrading the ashes of the you know, of the summons or the stones that you need to upgrade weapons, I had to get specific bell bearings for those. But it turns out I don't need to get them again in New Game Plus, so they're already there. So when you first access the store, you wouldn't have access to those, but you'll have these rune arcs. Make sure you buy them, because initially you might need them. So they're like what embers were in the Souls game. So definitely buy the rune arcs, and if you haven't had a visit from Rani, buy the summoning bell and the wolf ashes and whatnot. And if you don't have any good weapons, you could temporarily buy a long sword or something from here. So I was quite impressed by this, because I thought I'll have to get those bell bearings again, but all of the smithing stones and others, you wouldn't have them yet, because you need to, as you see there, offer a bell bearing which you collect through a particular cave or a quest or whatnot. So that was a pretty good thing, and don't mind the stutter here, it gets better as we move through the fights. And this is some dude called D, who's part of some quest line or something, and I don't know, does he get whacked later or something? I'm not going to spoil that for you if you really care, but this game's been around for years now, so yeah, that's fine. And then and then that's Sir Gideon Ofnir, whose office we went by, and his office will open, and yeah, you can just exhaust his dialogue and stuff. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, sorry about the stutter. I just installed some new NVIDIA drivers and they don't create issues. And those are the doors which will open as you progress through the game, and which is where you can exchange the remembrances you get by beating the major story bosses for their equipment or powers or something like that. So that's a pretty good place to go to. And this is where on the right you'll eventually encounter Sorcerer Rogier, whom you meet in Stormvale Castle, which we'll go to in the next video. And this is a training area where you get a training invader. So the first time you play him, you'd need to be really careful with your dodges and whatnot, and it will take some major just like a lot of dodging and patience and practice. And he does have a flask to renew his mana, but of course in New Game 1 got the build, and up front he isn't that much of a difference from the base game, so just took him out quickly. And yeah, here we are back to that Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. So just exhaust his dialogue. As you progress the game, through the game, he'll have a list of, the main bosses and some cryptic tips on where you could find them or about them and stuff like that. So that's a good area to go to. And then, now I'm waiting for the and here we are back at the Beastial Sanctum. Now this guy, Blackblade Krindred, is like the toughest of the 3 Blackblade Krindens I encountered. So I'll take him out later, but if you're I could take him out now, but if you're in your first run, you better not fuck with him right now. So that's all I'd say. And what you'd normally do is that, after the third church of Marika, if you come here, even without engaging anyone, you can basically from the first step go to the Gatefront, get your horse, sneak around those guys to get the flail, and level up a bit to get the dex to get the bleed weapon. And from the Beastial Sanctum, you can now go down the bridge I'm about to show you and avoid the dragon there, and then go right all the way until you find Fort Faroth, where there is an immobile dragon that you can slowly kill with a bleed weapon for some runes. So which is what you would do if you are new up front, but of course, I took a different path. I also showed you the Roundtable hold. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to fight the flying dragon, the flying dragon Greyll. He's on a bridge here just to show you the basics of how most dragons in this game work. So I put in quite a lot of buffs, but when you meet him in the base game, you may not necessarily have the buffs at this stage, but that's okay. As long as you have a bleed weapon, it should be pretty alright. So all the dragons in this game, barring the optional Placidusax and the Lich Dragon Fortisax in that Fia quest line, have a predictable pattern. They have melee moves and a jump which is easy to punish, And other than those, they do various breath attacks, which you can either run away from like I'm doing here, or if you're really close to them, as I'll show you in a while, you can, pretty much run under them to attack the dragon from underneath. But there's some which have a scarlet rot or others, you really need to back away from those. And here we're about to punish his jump attack. It's pretty easy to predict and just hit him on the head. And I've got a lot of buffs, but in the base game, even if you don't have the buff and a maxed weapon like I do, hitting him on the head with a bleed weapon will help you slowly wear him down. But bear in mind, in the base game, you would have to dodge carefully and use this bridge to back away when he's about to attack. And okay, here I messed up because this was an attack easy to punish, but I walked in a bit too close. Otherwise, I could have easily punished that attack as well. So when he roars and he's about to charge or do a jump attack, it's easy to get in front of his head and attack him. Other than that, and see, this is another thing that most dragons in this game operate within a certain invisible wall. So he doesn't come beyond a certain part of the bridge or he teleports back. And here we just saw that I got underneath his fire attack. So, and yep, we managed to get him. It'll take you a bit longer in the base game when you first come here. So what you basically need to do is bait the jump and the melee attacks, punish them, and either if you're a bit medium distance, run away from the fire or just roll under them. And okay, and here on the way to that immobile dragon, you also come across a minor Erdtree boss, which you can actually definitely ignore for now as when you come here front up. But as again, so I had the build I wanted to test. So yeah, this guy has these laser projectiles close to his depth that you need to avoid, and the scarlet rot poison. And otherwise you can use various bleed or impact weapons. I use the Murray executioner. But when you first come as a new player for rune farming, you can skip that fight. And this is an optional dragon next to this is not even a boss, this is next to that other bigger dragon that we are going to farm. But I just took him out anyway, because in Caelid you even have these dragons as non-boss enemies, and the key is to basically use a horse and get underneath them, and it's pretty easy to then get them out. So now, after walking round and round the bush, we check down at the Fort Faroth site of grace, and this is where we meet that dragon, where as a new player with that bleed weapon, flail or whatnot, you'll slowly wear him down. Even if you don't have the buffs I've applied, you should be able to, and you'll get, I think, 50 to 60,000 runes, which for a new player will be quite a lot. So you got to slowly wear this down. And on the internet there's even a trick whereby just before he dies, if you take the horse to the checkpoint and reset it, you get the runes, but he respawns again, so you can farm multiple times. I didn't do all of that stuff, so that's fine. And yep, so, and this is my build. Bear in mind that I finished the base game at level 170, but I stuck around till 230 plus, just to collect some items and get optional bosses. So which is why I'm getting only 1 or 2 levels. But with the runes that you win, you will be able to go up 10-15 levels or something like that. So you don't have to worry about that here. So this was my pretty much my run so far. So it was so what you'd basically need to do if you're new is like after you start off at the first step, you go to the church and get your crafting kit, then go to the Gatefront, pick up your horse, then sneak around those guys to pick up the flail, bleed weapon, do a bit of attacks or something to get some runes to lift up your decks to use the flail, and then you follow that path down that road, if needed, avoiding that night cavalry from now, till you get to the third church of Marika, from where you can teleport to this late game area Caelid, and from there you just go down the Beastial Sanctum, go past that bridge with that flying dragon Greyll. He wouldn't attack you unless you aggro him. Go straight down, then take a right past the minor Erdtree, who again you can skip for a while, and then go all the way up to Fort Faroth, where you find the immobile dragon that you will slowly bleed to get some runes to level up. And if you can pull off that trick, if it still works, whereby you get him to respawn again, you can do that to get some runes. And there is another way that I'll show you in my my next video, where using this path you can go to a place called Lens Rise, where you get a ball to there is like some kind of a knocking pin that like a rolling ball that comes that can knock you over. You get it to spawn and you dodge it at the last minute. It goes down to an area where you win 2000 runes, and you can keep on repeating that to rune farm, and you can basically use that to farm some souls even without fighting anyone. So these are some good early game rune farms for you to level up before you fight. And then the rest of this area, Caelid and Dragonbarrow, does require some leveling up, but I was in new game +1, and in each new game level, although they say the difficulty increases, I think the difficulty mostly increases in the second half of the game. So in the first half of the game, having finished new game +1 with a end game build, I was able to easily take out some of the early game bosses, which in my first run took some time. So I still showed those anyway, because I wanted to show you what is the technique for taking out most of the dragons and other stuff. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. The next one's going to be even a bit more exciting as we go inside this cool cave in Dragonbarrow. We fight a couple more dragons and the more dangerous one of the night cavalry and stuff. So that's going to be pretty exciting. Look forward to seeing you there, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers.